So as mentioned, I'm Tanya Carlson. I work in the customer success side of the house with Fountain. And today, I've learned a lot in the last 24, 36 hours being here, and we've heard a lot about some of the cool things going on. I've taken the term everboarding that I heard yesterday from the Shipley Donuts folks, a lot about what happens after we've got people hired. Today, we want to spend a little time talking about some of Fountain's customers and how they're really upping their game, hiring frontline workers in the QSR space. So before we do, I want to make sure, as Mike eloquently put it, that we're all speaking the same language, looking at the challenges that we're facing in the QSR space and the frontline worker space within the same lens. So the world is changing. We know this, right? It's moving ever faster. How many of you get annoyed when you order something and it doesn't show up at your front door in 2, maybe 3 days? Me. I'm totally guilty of this. Like, where is it? Checking Amazon or wherever you're ordering from, right? That is really true of the frontline worker as well. There is an instant gratification culture that we live in. And the frontline workers in particular are moving from job to job to job. They have optionality. We all have optionality. We have information at our fingertips that we didn't 10 years ago, certainly, literally at our fingertips on our mobile device. And that's putting a different set of challenges in front of those in the QSR space and amongst other industries, other customer sets of Fountain as well. We also know AI and automation are absolutely buzzwords. We all hear about it all the time. How many of you have an initiative or a project or a pilot going on in your organization that is somehow related to AI? A lot, maybe some. We're seeing an increasing trend where that AI is really being focused in the talent management space and particularly in the hiring process. And so what does that mean? It means that the job candidates, the talent, the frontline workers that so many are going after and competing for, those candidates have more options to ascertain information really quickly, to chat with a chat bot or to get information about different jobs, about different companies super, super, super quickly. And in fact, we know that most of the people that are applying for hourly jobs in the frontline workforce are applying on a mobile device. You can imagine somebody sitting at on their couch and they're just ripping off like one after another after another. They're applying to 15 to 20 jobs at a time on their mobile phone. We also know that sort of, dare I say, impatience, that instant gratification culture, if they are not getting a response really, really quickly, or it takes them 15 or 20 minutes to fill out an application, on to the next. It's over. Like, you've lost their attention. You've lost the right to try to get them to work for your company. And that can be a little bit disheartening, but fear not, we have a few solutions in just a couple minutes here to talk through. But we've also, through some of the research that we've done in partnership with BCG and other market research or fine folks at SHRM, we're seeing a big trend that engagement, that I want to swipe right and get a message right back, that applies to the frontline workforce too. You've got to stay engaged with those looking for their next job. And if we don't, that applicant, that candidate experience really, really suffers. And again, they've got, application 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 running right in parallel. They're going to move on to the next. People want to feel seen. They want to feel heard. They want that message back in a timely fashion. And they definitely do not want to get ghosted in their job application process. I mean, none of us do, right? Doesn't feel very good. So with all of that being said, so what do we do about this? How can we overcome some of these challenges, knowing that people are in an instant gratification culture, on their phone, doing lots of different things at once, but ultimately also really want to find meaningful work? They want a paycheck. They want to be able to put food on their table or sort of advance their own careers. And within that context, we think about it in a couple of ways. Speed matters. If we know that they're going to drop out of the application process, they have choices, they have optionality. Frontline workers need to be moved through the application process quickly so that they can get to their first shift as quickly as possible, and that if you're running a restaurant or a store, that you have the staff that you need to satisfy your operational goals, right? So we think of that as sort of underpinning speed is engagement and data-driven insights. And we'll talk a little bit about how two of Fountain's customers in Bojangles and Panera are putting these in play. So starting with Bojangles, Bojangles partnered with Fountain 2.5 years ago, and we've continued to grow the partnership throughout their nearly 800 stores. And one of the things that really spoke to Bojangles as they were at the outset of finding a new technology solution to help optimize their hiring process for frontline workers was around finding that right intersection of technology and the human touch. It's bow time is one of their slogans, and it's absolutely a human-centric, human-driven business, and technology could not supplant that human touch. So how do you find that Venn diagram, that sweet spot right in the middle? They had 3 primary challenges, and Jacob, who is their head of talent management, he's amazing, by the way, get the good fortune of getting to know him, or have gotten to know him over the years, and he really thought about, what is it that is our challenge number 1? He's like, it's always a race against the clock, period. It is a race against the clock, and we've got to get faster. So they were seeing some slow application speeds. They had, frankly, some challenges with the communication, that engagement element. It was slowing them down because they were doing so much of that manually. And they were ultimately seeing really, really long time to fill. It was taking a long time from application start to the time they could get people walking in to take their first shift. So breaking it down, as we sort of started our partnership together, we really started to peel back that onion and understand what's going on under the hood in this business. And that statistic around the 84% of people on a mobile phone doing an application could not have been truer for the Bojangles application population. Not only were they mobile, they were also in really largely rural areas. So you can imagine not great Wi-Fi, none of these people were sitting at, I shouldn't say none, but very few were sitting at a desktop computer on a standard Wi-Fi connection. They were on a mobile device in a rural area. So mobile friendly might be even a light way to put it. It had to be mobile first. Had to be optimized for that mobile experience. They also were saying, our recruiters are spending time, so much time, texting people, sending follow-up emails, making phone calls. And there's a time and a place where that, you still need to pick up the phone. You still want to have that interaction. But as a process, it was just really, really overwhelming them. And again, that human connection still mattered. There is a time, I was just speaking with Emily from Noodles & Company right before this, there's a time you want that sort of face-to-face, eye-to-eye communication going on, but figuring out when and where to apply that in the process was really, really critical. So what was the ultimate solution? First and foremost, addressing the applicant population, meeting them where they are, understanding how are they applying for jobs? Where are they sitting when they're doing this? How can we make sure that they're getting a job application onto their mobile device in a timely way? And text to apply was really, really, really crucial for the Bojangles folks. We did do some QR codes in store too. We know that often the frontline workers are often customers as well. And then also no logins. Their legacy system, we've all probably applied for jobs where you enter your login and password in one place, then you go to apply to the next place and you're like, didn't I just enter that login and password somewhere? Or you go back to finish the job application and you can't remember the password. That was happening for their frontline workers. And it was really, really driving the drop-off in their application process in a fundamental way. So text to apply and no logins got us to the place where the applicants were getting their application process really off to the races. Secondly, the right message to the right person at the right time through the right channel. Is it SMS? Is it email? Is it a mix of both throughout the application process so that they're getting the information that they really need? So a great example of this is the interview process, right? We want to get them to a place where they can have an interview scheduled really quickly, but then if they're applying to 15 places and then have 12 interviews scheduled, do they remember when they need to be at an interview? Do they remember what store they're going to? A great follow-up message, a reminder message, a text message with the address to the location of their in-person interview an hour, 2 hours before that interview really increased the show rate on their interviews, not wasting the hiring manager time in that scenario as well. We also found, as much as we would love to say that every applicant is going to come through, it's going to be a great process, we're going to hire all of them. The reality is a lot of them are not fit for the job they're applying for. So how do you tell someone, this is not really going to work out? Does anyone in the room have a great sort of soft rejection message that they have in play that they'd like to share? Michael, don't make me pick on you. No, I'm kidding. Michael's from Fountain. I can tell you what doesn't work is saying nothing. Like that's just rude, right? Just like, nope, guess you weren't a good fit for the job. One of the most impactful things that can be done is to say, you applied for maybe a restaurant manager role. Based on your answers, you're just really not a great fit for it, but you know what? Maybe you're right for the shift lead. Or perhaps that particular position filled while you were in the application process. We've got a store, it's maybe an extra 10-minute drive. Are you interested in that one instead? Then you're optimizing that person who was already in the funnel. No more ad spend on that same individual because they're already there. Don't make them answer the questions they already have. Just port them right over and keep on rolling. That's the best case scenario, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. They're legitimately not the right fit for that role, and that's okay. It happens sometimes. But being able to give them a thoughtful, personalized message, like, we see you, we know you're looking for this, it's just not the right fit right now. Bonus points if you can say, you know what, it's not the right fit right now, but we know that you love Bojangles. Here's 50% off your Bo Biscuit tomorrow. You're building that brand loyalty. You're getting them to come back into your stores, continuing to engage with your brand, but also letting them down softly in a really transparent and consistent way. And then also the data-driven decision-making. Again, starting to build a suite of data, a suite of decision-making tools to say, we were able to optimize the front half of the application process. People are moving through really, really quickly. They're getting to this interview stage, and we know that is working efficiently such that we can focus our sort of human time on the interview process. We also know that if you're a hiring manager, you're actually on the floor of a restaurant or a retail location, hiring is one part of your job. It's a fraction of your job, and you probably have 5 other things that have to happen before that. Making sure that time spent on the recruiting process is like really, really fine-tuned and they're not wasting their time is critical. And it's great when you have the ability to say, we know that franchise group A is doing this. We have the data to show how that compares to perhaps what's going on in franchise group B, and being able to tweak and tune based on some of that from sort of the corporate view. And what were the results, right? Everybody loves a sexy chart, but it has to be backed up by real world tactical changes to see these sorts of outsized results. So time to hire at nearly 1 month, at 30 days. Today, Bojangles is averaging 5.8 days time to hire. And as cool as the slide is, the reality is that there's just a lot less burnout happening in their locations right now because they're staffed more appropriately. And of course, they have those pockets where they're still trying to manage and get people through the door, but overall, they are seeing just a much more consistent staffing, ability to staff their stores quickly, predictably, and really seeing the impact from that perspective. And while it looks a little bit like a footnote, well, maybe not, this is a really big screen behind me. On my screen over here, it looks like a footnote. The reality is that through optimizing their hiring process, figuring out where to put in that human touch point and where not to, where to let the technology do some heavy lifting, they've also seen an 86% drop off on their advertising spend. Again, because they're getting in front of the right people where they need them. They're optimizing when they've got someone in the funnel and they can redirect and put them in the right place. There's a real bottom line impact there. They're not alone. Panera also has a good story to tell. American Bread Company is one of the leading franchise groups for Panera. We had the good fortune of bringing them on as a partner last year. They're a fun group to work with, and they had a lot of challenges. They were admittedly a little bit behind where Bojangles was sort of on the technology curve, and we needed to first understand sort of where they were. We talked there were some similarities with Bojangles in the sense that there was some manual effort going on in their hiring process, but the reality is a lot of their business process was like running out of spreadsheets and very, very different from location to location. And so we needed to sort of, again, deep dive into sort of what that looked like to understand they still had a speed problem. They were also seeing a lot of inconsistency because of the disparity across their organization, that the roles and responsibilities were really different, and that was driving, frankly, just a real lack of visibility. They just didn't have data in a centralized location to even have an idea of how to sort of compare A to B. And so again, as we got into the implementation process together, we were doing some deep dives on their business process. and on their application process simultaneously. And as we were going through applying for roles in different locations, what was happening in Philadelphia was really different from the experience as an applicant in the New York market. In the same vein, the responsibilities and the approach from those different hiring managers in different locations also super different. It was not having a lot of great brand consistency for them, and they knew they wanted to improve. There was absolutely just sort of a very frank conversation, like, we know we need to do something different. And they also were sort of making these really one-size-fits-all type of decisions because they didn't have the data to do it differently. And they're like, we know for sure there are these regional variations. There are things happening on, like, boots on the ground, but we don't have the data to back up a decision to do it differently that we can say is, like, super defensible. And therefore, there's sort of this, like, blanketed, well, this is how we're going to try to make some changes. And they wanted to become much more prescriptive and be able to make decisions to address some of those unique market needs. And so how did they start approaching this? The first, again, in a similar vein with the way we talked with the Bojangles use cases and the partnership that we set out on, is that we looked at the sort of applicant experience side first. Those first couple of touch points can be automated. You can collect great data on your applicants using AI and automation to say, that basic information, determining their experience. Are they old enough to take on the particular position that they're looking to apply for? Those things can be automated and don't require human touch. Again, it's letting the technology do the work there. It's also, for them, was really, really critical to start thinking about their data in a different way. So thinking about how do we integrate all of the tech stack sort of end to end to optimize the applicant experience. So if I'm applying for a job, can I answer the questions? Can I get through the beginning part of the application process? Can I do a background check or fill out my I-9 all in one really streamlined experience? That's great for the person applying for the job. It was really great for American Bread Company because it started to put all of their data into a consolidated, centralized place and then transfer that into their HRIS system as the single source of truth without having to manually update spreadsheets and go, like, row by row and VLOOKUP table this in one spreadsheet. Like, I see chuckles, like we've all probably been in that life at some point. It's like, it's mind-numbing and it's manual and it's not really the work that we want people to be doing, particularly when speed is the name of the game. And so that really integrated approach to their technology end-to-end gave them the ability to build a data foundation with which to then start drilling in to understand how analytics could give them the ability to understand more localized what's happening in different locations. Where should we be spending our time to think about how to make a particular group of stores or a particular set of locations more efficient? And so for them, they had 90% of all of their messages are automated. Again, automated doesn't mean impersonal. It has you want color, voice, tone, the brand. You want it to have personality. And the American Bread sort of tone was very important for them to carry through consistency, streamlining some of what was happening as they were doing lots of manual messaging. And so they were really focused also on, again, speed. How do we think about taking the first touch point in an application and getting an interview scheduled as quickly as possible? They currently have about 2.5 minutes from that first touch point to when they schedule an interview. Now, of course, that interview may be scheduled a day or 2 days out and can take a little bit more time. Overall, they are seeing a 5-day is sort of the low end for their time to hire, and a median across their entire franchise group at about 10 days, which again is a really sizable reduction in overall time. For them, that is a big driver for what they call their code red events. And a code red event is when they don't have enough staff in a particular location to operate in their standard business hours, which was happening. I'm sure it happens. I see head nods and smiles happening across the room right now. Like, it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal when you want to walk into your local Panera and get that broccoli cheddar bread bowl and it's closed. It's like, that's not awesome. I want to be able to experience the service and get the food that I want. And then, of course, from a bottom line perspective, that has a tremendous impact as well. There's also a great impact, obviously, on that kind of customer service, customer satisfaction when the stores are staffed appropriately, such that they are having the ability to have those meaningful touch points, again, from from the frontline worker experience. Being able to deliver great service to your customer feels good. It's part of the satisfaction people are looking to find, and having a well-staffed store where people aren't burnt out or running around like a chicken head with their head cut off trying to do 3 jobs at once. That all matters. So, if you remember nothing else, my fellow Fountaineers here probably are chuckling. It's our CEO's sort of target line of like, if you remember nothing else, with 3 things always. 1, use automation. Let the technology do the heavy lifting where it's most impactful, so that you can have that human interaction, so you can have the element of human-centric business still shining through, carrying through what's important to your brand, while the rest of the process is going quickly. Secondly, start with the end game in mind. This is something that I preach very frequently. Like, if you want a great set of data at the end, you want a robust suite of analytics, you have to think about your business process, your hiring workflow, and the systems that support it, and build and design with that end game in mind. If you set it up right in the first place, you get the data and the ability to feel confident in making decisions with analytics. That kind of comes if you do the upfront work in a meaningful and thoughtful way. And lastly, engagement and insights. Those 2 things in the process make for 1, a speedy process to hire folks, and 2, a high quality experience for both the applicant and for the recruiters, the talent management folks who are responsible for making sure that hiring goals are met. So thank you so much.